Elisa, Joy, and Mel are going to share now their experiences, their Jesus moments. We did our best to try to have pictures on the screens as well, so that you can hear what God is doing. But before I pass the baton off to them, I want to say this. As pastor of our beloved congregation, I'm so proud of our congregation because you guys broke records with the offering that came in. We had a set goal. I won't get into too much details. We had a set goal, but you guys not just doubled it, almost tripled it. Almost, right? That's just praise God. God moved in your hearts. But here's another thing. 18 months ago, when we were there, we were able to bless them with a surplus of the offering that came in 18 months ago. But with that offering, we were able to kickstart something so powerful that Elise is going to share more. But we were able to go and see our offering be used for the glory of God's kingdom, to the point where some local leaders over there think we're some mega church with all the resources in the world. And so I was telling the missions team on the way back too, I don't think we can use the word, we're a small little church out on Long Island anymore. Not in, but on Long Island anymore. Because God has been doing some powerful things, not just locally, but globally through our church. And so as you get to hear from Elisa, Joy, and Mel, I hope you're encouraged. I hope you're challenged. You know what? I hope you fall in love with Jesus all over again as you hear from them. So next slide, please. That's Joy. So Joy's pictures, yeah. Joy, Elisa, and Mel.
It's not really the one I want first.
But you can, yeah.
First of all, I just want to thank the congregation for your support, for your monetary support, for your prayer support. We felt those prayers. We needed those prayers. This trip was my first thought that came to my mind was a trip in contrast. When you see how we live and you see how the people in Crucero live, it was a trip of prayer and frustration. But God was always faithful in answering those prayers. There were a lot of frustrating moments last week. But God was faithful, and he answered every one of them in ways that we couldn't even imagine. So anyway, I get to talk about the bakery project and the shelves, more the physical aspect of it. The bakery project, on Monday, we went to see where this was going to be, and there's this shed. You can see the shed, not closed off walls at all, but there was this rusty old piece of, there we go, rusty, missing a side, missing all the doors, missing the racks. I mean, it was missing a lot, and that thing had to be resurrected. And they kept pulling more pieces out, and one was rustier than the other. It was just a mess. So that week was spent scraping, wire brushing, sanding, painting. Dean, we could have used you. It was a lot of work. You come home and you got paint up to or I did, I'm kind of messy, paint up to my elbows. It was just disaster. But the whole goal that week was that by Thursday, we'd be baking bread or cake. And on Monday, it was just like, no way, this isn't going to happen. And it kept raining all week. And the rain you couldn't see. We were painting with flashlights at times to get it all good. You're slogging through mud. It was just really yucky. But by God's grace alone, by the end of the week, by Thursday noon, we had, there's the finished things. That's on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, maybe I didn't have the one of Thursday with the cake. But by noon, there was cake. It was just Absolutely, it was all God. It was just so cool. Now, the ladies there plan on using this bakery as a way to be able to bring some income into their homes. So the ladies of Crucero are a very industrious group. They've already started a co-op at the community center where they buy things in bulk, and then they divide it up, and they sell it to each other at a lower cost than they could buy it, but at a way to get profit for their group of community people. And then at the end of the year, they divvy up their profits among them. So this bakery is another way of starting to earn some money, a way to get more money into their households. So there is a picture of some of the ladies. We were so excited this past week, another answer to prayer. They've already started training. So we were able to get it up and going. Pastor Eduardo, the man in the picture, he's teaching them about how to use the oven and how to use the well, they know how to bake, but I mean, for the recipes he had been using and the mixer. So already God is answering prayer, and they've already started using this bakery to be able to earn some money. But the other project that we did was shelves inside the community center. They had a empty storage room, but you can just put stuff on the floor. You get so much wasted space. So they really wanted shelves, and they needed that for the bakery products and for their co-op. And so the whole team worked on these shelves. Granted, Mel did a lot of the work of shelves, but that also was a whole work in frustration. And on Monday, it's just like, we saw the 1x2s with live edges, nothing square, straight. It's just like, Lord, this isn't going to happen. But it did. And we kept losing power. And we couldn't see, and we couldn't use electric tools. But God was faithful, and that was completed on Thursday afternoon. So it was just really exciting. And I would just really like to encourage everyone here that if you've ever thought of maybe being a part of something like this, to really consider it, because it is just such a blessing to be able to be there and to share in these moments. So thank you.
First of all, thank you. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for your love. We really felt it. We truly did. And we had some dark moments. There were a few glitches, as Joy had mentioned, a few trials and tribulations. One of the big trials for us were the monsoon rains. Now, these were not baby rains that we have here. These were like hurricane force rains, where the rain is coming sideways. So it was coming sideways. And the mud roads now became little rivers. The holes in the roads became much deeper. It became treacherous to the point where people could not leave their homes and come down, walk down these mountain roads. So some of our activities were curtailed because of that. It was a little frustrating, I'll be perfectly honest, to tell you that. But after 3 days of rain, and unfortunately, Mel's and Joy's room had the proverbial hole in the roof, so their bed got saturated. My bed got saturated at the end of it. So we had kind of like a spa treatment where we had the humidity and the moisture throughout. But we kept saying that we have clean water. It was spotty, but we had clean water. The only other challenge was when we had the rain, we lost power, and sometimes we lost water. But one day was particularly distressing for me when we heard, wow, the power went out relatively early. We wondered what happened, and we found out that with the strong winds, one of the electric lines actually came down and electrocuted a cow. So we felt very bad about that. But at least it said, okay, well, somebody's talking to us somehow, some way. So when we thought about everything that had happened, I was blessed to really be able to do the following. We visited a school, and here we go, and I was teaching the kids about hand washing, something we take for granted. They don't have running water. They don't have soap. So how are we going to do this? And yes, we taught them how to wash their hands to Jesus Loves Me in Spanish. So we reinforced their culture and how they can do that. So in the goodie bags that Michael passed around, these were the ones we gave to the kids. You can pass them around so they can say, yeah. And in each of the goodie bags, we had given them soap. We had given them toothbrushes because when we were speaking to them, they don't have the dentist. They don't have dental care. So and the one that Evelyn is giving you on this side are the bags for the ladies, okay? So for them to get a toothbrush and toothpaste was wonderful, glorious, and so they were very, very excited about this. And the kids were kind of squished. They were kids from one whole school. They were kind of broken down into two different groups, a younger group, K to 2, and then an older group, 3 to 7. Now think about having 40 kids squashed together in a desk. What do you think typical behavior is going to be? Elbows, talking. They were so quiet and respectful. It was unbelievable. I said I would teach these kids any day of the week. They were phenomenal. They were really, really great. And then after going to the school, which again was a monsoon day, so by the time we got back to just getting from the school to the car, we were saturated. The next day we went to the clinic, and that was such an exciting experience because, as Pastor James had previously said, we provided the seed money for this clinic to be now a monthly event. So with our money, they were able to have 4 giant tubs like this filled with medicines. So they had, analgesics, they had antihypertensives, they had antibiotics, they had pain management, no narcotics, but they had enough of a selection so that anybody who walked in would receive the medication. Now, the patients were triaged, they were assessed. There was a nurse. She was wonderful. She was a former neonatal ICU nurse, person after my own heart, and then she felt the calling, so she came here, and then she had to kind of like reset her mind to do community nursing and gerontology. And then we also had students, Joshua students, international students, that were there to learn the process. They were not nursing students, they were not medical students, so they were totally clueless on how to do blood pressures and do intake. But, with the help of all of us, we got it together. So that day we were able to see 25 patients. And one of the patients came in with a blood pressure of 220 over 125. We looked at each other and said, he should be dead. It was amazing. So we were able to give him medication and monitor him. And by the time he was ready to leave, it was down to 160 over 94, I think. So he received medication. Everybody there received medication for a month. This way it reinforced the need for them to come back. Nobody was charged anything for it. Of course, it was all free. But it was so rewarding to see how Pastor Fernando really interacted with the people, how he gave a little spiel about spirituality and sang hymns. And of course, it opens up your airways, it helps you with the breathing, but it really set the tone. So Pastor Fernando is just wonderful with me. When we went to the ladies, when we were able to see the ladies and have that health teaching, it was just amazing because some of them were returnees from our previous adventure. So it was very heartwarming to see the warm welcome that I had received and how attentive they were to the discussions that we had. And I was very blessed. This is still the clinic. Oh, that was the road. If you go back one time. That was one of the good roads. Some of the roads were so bad that Kim, where she lived, she couldn't drive down it, so she would have to walk down to us, and then we would walk. The next slide, if you look at it, this is when we had done a home visit, and the woman standing next to me is Myrta, and she was just 93, I think, yeah, she was 93 that day. She was phenomenal. She was like she was like a Tiki in training. She was so great. She was doing everything. She was cooking, getting eggs and everything. She was phenomenal. And these are some of her children. She has 11 children, and they all live close by, and they all are just wonderful with her. So we were able to see Millie. Millie was ill, so she was staying in bed in her home. Millie is the mom of Oleanda, who passed away on January 11th last year. So we saw Millie, and she was suffering with dengue fever, so she wasn't really feeling that well, so she stayed in bed, but we were able to spend time with her and be with her, and it was just very heartwarming to see how that family, who has absolutely nothing, wanted to give us everything they had. Myrta was very angry at us that we had to leave because we had another appointment, because she had made lunch. She wanted us to have lunch. She wouldn't let us leave without giving us fresh eggs from her chickens, so we had the fresh eggs. Then when we got back in Kim's truck, then we had to say a major prayer because the truck was having starter issues with the fuel pump, so that's where I learned how to jump start it with the fuel pump, and so now if you have a fuel pump that is a pump, I can help you with that, okay? But what I really wanted to share was that even when the weather had kind of restricted our ability, one day I was supposed to go and teach adolescents about teen pregnancy, sex, and done a nice presentation and handouts, and then Kim let me know that the principal called and that was canceled. I said, oh no. And I'm thinking, we should be so happy because the sun is out. Well, exactly. The reason why they canceled it was because they could now drill a well for the school. So it's kind of bittersweet, but it was great that they had that ability. So on the one hand, I was a little distressed, but then I had to stop and think, just let go. And let God. Obviously, He's in control. This is what they need, more than my little health chat, but they need the well. So it was very humbling for me. There were times when I was frustrated. I was a little upset, and I have to be perfectly honest. I totally felt like a slacker. I truly did, compared to Mel and Joy. And on that note, I'm going to ask Mel to come up. But I want to thank you so much for your support, and also for Michael. Without him, I could not have been there. So, from the slacker me to you, you have to open it. Just take this out. This is
I
for
get the Golden Hammer Award.
This is for the master carpenter.
Well, I'm asked to talk a little bit about Leveed Church. The first slide, you can, just go back one. Just so you know, one of the things most of our team was able to do, once the cakes were baked on Thursday, they went out into the community and started handing out pieces of cake. So a way to witness to that community. Pretty cool. Next slide. So we get to the airport, and I'm greeted by what Pastor James has called my best friend, Pastor Eduardo. But we do have a kinship together at this point. There's a language barrier. I only speak Spanglish, but we could communicate in many different ways, and it was a pleasure to reacquaint with all the people at Leveed. Even though we were out in the country this time, it was good to be there with them. And one of the first things that we did that really energized the group was we got there on Saturday. We relaxed Saturday night. Sunday was church. That energized us for the whole next week. To be there with those folks in worship with their worship team, it was like I was singing Spanish almost to the top of my lungs. Did I know what I was singing? maybe not so much, although some of the slides that they had up there had the English underneath, but you got to try and focus on singing it and then quick look down before they change the slide. But it was good to be in church with them. Their leadership is phenomenal. Not only their pastors, they have 3 pastors, Pastor Eduardo, Pastor Fernando, and Pastor Virgilio. They are unpaid. Pastor Virgilio, in his profession, he heads up an orphanage. Pastor Fernando is an OBGYN and just general doctor, does a lot of work. And then Pastor Eduardo picks up odd jobs. He's a handyman. So his employment isn't always as steady, but he's probably one of the more main pastors, although they are all being used at this point, and I'll get into that in a minute. You can switch the slide. Next slide. So, Pastor Eduardo gave us a little update, and we also met with their leaders, and I got another slide on that in a little bit, because they wanted to meet with us, because we had a strategic planning meeting with them a year ago, and again, that led to some of the seed money and what they plan to do based on our guidance. But one of the things that they've been doing, when we went there last year, they had 1 row of cinder blocks laid. If you look through that window there, yeah, here you go. There was just 1 block of cinder blocks. They took out a loan. And I talked with Pastor Fernando, and I said, well, how you doing? What's going on? And he told me they took out a 300,000 peso loan, which is about 5,000 US dollars. Their goal right now is to there's like 3 classrooms. They have greater vision for this, but right now their goal is to get a roof on that. There's no floor, there's no windows, there's no doors. But they want to get a roof on it so that they can start using the classrooms for their Sunday school. But so I was excited when I saw the blocks up that high. You might look at that and say, oh man, that's not even half finished. But I was excited to see that, and I complimented them on that when we met with them. You can go to the next slide. Okay. Can you go to the next one? Is there one more? No, there isn't. Okay, that one got left out. Okay, so you can back it up one. So they are, as I said, they're being stretched, but they have vision. We met with them Wednesday night because they wanted to report on what they're doing. As I said, they want to get a roof on that so it's usable. They are involved now in an additional ministry, which is this church. Not the kind of church you would normally go to. But that church, it is Iglesia Cristiana Nuevo Amanecer, New Rising. Beautiful setting. I'd love to go to that church and be able to listen to the pastor, of course, but also look out in the mountains in the background. Just a really beautiful setting. They are being stretched in that now those 3 pastors, and they're trying to train some of their able lay leaders to assist. They have Lavid Church. They have their daughter church in La Jolla, and I forgot the name of that church, but Emmanuel. Okay. And now there was a missionary here, and for some reason he left. Well, they didn't want to let this ministry go away. It's only 15 to 20 people a Sunday, and they meet on Tuesdays. Pastor Eduardo's there every Tuesday with them, and they have a rotating shift between the 3 pastors and the lay leaders for the churches. They're being stretched. Again, they're not paid for this. And that's one of the things we have to pray for them for, that God would bless them. Additionally, what they're doing as part of their vision is they want to, they have some people that are trained to do counseling. Those buildings you saw before, that is going to be used for meeting rooms, for Sunday school and things like that, but it's also going to be used to do counseling. And they're training a couple of the lay leaders are taking online courses to be able to do that counseling. So there's exciting things, and they're very committed to being in that community, a community which at nighttime, there's a lot of female trafficking. There is a lot of, in both that, Jarabacoa, and also where La Jolla is. There's a lot of kids involved in being drug mules, but they're committed to trying to make a positive change. And so that's exciting. And like my wife, well, let me say one thing. I should cut this hammer in half because my wife deserves half. I couldn't have done what I did without her help. She's my better half. So I'll give her the bigger half. But seriously, now I lost my train of thought. We need to pray for these pastors because they are being stretched, and it is difficult for them. But it is exciting to see their commitment to trying to make change where they are.
Good morning. If you wouldn't mind going just back 4 slides back, there's one, let's see, I think just before this one. This one is representative of how God blessed me through this trip in showing me how God placed a heart for community on the leaders, and then for the local communities, and then the community support from those positive activities, and including the response to prayer, the fruit of the Spirit through the clinic, the immense number of people that came to the clinic, the response to English classes that were given in that, also fitness activities being done in the community, the baking that has already been discussed, and then how some of them even would come. There was one person in there that while we were working, a person of the community came and said, "Hey, I wanna make a rabbit for you guys. I wanna bring a rabbit so you can use that oven that you guys are working on." But the way the community, we could see the fruit of the Spirit, and how the community was responding to everything that is being done. It was just a blessing, and it shows how it helped me see how we can continue being impactful, and how God uses all of us as we can just focus on the local communities. Thank you.